Hello, sir.
Hi, Ms. Meditz.
How are you doing? And you don't have to call me Miss Meditz. You can call me Rebecca.
You got it, Ms. Meditz.
All right. I'm David's computer technician. So,
Well, we're still running. We are live on YouTube, so we'll be ready when it starts. The issue we're having is getting the chamber set up. So I'm running between the 4th floor and the lobby here. So,
oh, good
which is why I'm
exercise.
Janet right now.
So,
And I'll be Gunner in a minute.
Okay, Gunner, I am live on YouTube, as you saw. I'm gonna make your profile host, correct? Okay,
Okay.
and then I'll come down to the chamber and see if I can help you figure out the audio.
All right. I'll be right down there.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
have a good meeting, guys. Oh, there's cough drops in I want my phone. Yours is right there. Okay. UGTV. Oh, goodness. Sit down where, how you're gonna sit. So I can make sure. You should be fine. I would think. Yeah, because it just shows that corner. I know. Okay, that looks good, I think. So. All righty. Do you want the heater on or you want the off? The heater on or off? On. We're gonna turn it down a little bit because it does get hot.
See if this works. Commissioner Meditz, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Mr. Meditz, we're going to do a little testing here. Test one, test one. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, that just turned the mic.
Yeah. Should I turn? This is the only place that sound's coming out though. Is there? I mean, technically, most people are going to be on UGTV, but if there are people here in public,
Right,
and this is my only speaker,
right.
that's my only thought. I know. No, you and me both. Mr. Meditz, can you say something real quick?
Yes, I can. While we're setting this up, do you have Janet's little protocol sheet?
I do not.
All right,
I think we're just going to wing it.
that's right. I'll just kind of do that in the opening the best I can.
Okay, great. Okay.
Hey, to turn the speakers on in the chamber, is there power in the back?
Hey, Mariah.
Yes, turn the speakers on in the chamber. Is there a power head in the back? Yeah, they're not on. When it comes to UGTV, is it supposed to broadcast to the speakers of the microphones or fine? But if somebody's on through the Zoom, it's not coming to the speakers, should it be? All right, we'll do. All right. All right, we'll do. Hey, got a question for you. I'm working the meeting tonight. The speakers in the chamber on their microphones are working, they work fine. But if somebody's on Zoom, should their voices come to the speakers in the chambers or just the one on the table?
They got rid of the sticker.
But
I
they're
didn't even
not.
say
When
anything yet.
Gunner's talking on the microphones in the chambers, and that's loud and clear from the speakers in the chambers. But he's also doing a test with somebody on Zoom, and it's just coming through his little box in front of him on that front. It's not coming through the main speakers. He's got a little black box in front of his, by the side of his computer. That we, he's got a computer in front of him, yes. You don't. No, nobody's here yet from IT. The only person here is the UGTV. Yeah, Mariah's there. You want to talk to her? She's right here. All right. You're on speaker. I'll go with that. No.
And me through.
This works.
Yep, mics work. Mics are inputting into Zoom. Correct. It's just coming through the computer speaker.
Tell him the deputy, the A admin is unmuted.
A admin is unmuted.
And then on the deputy admin, I'm unmuted.
And then deputy admin is unmuted.
And The last one is unmuted.
And the last one is unmuted.
Right,
Mr. Menace, can you talk one more time?
Sure, I can't do that. They say I talk too much sometimes.
One more test, Mr. Menace.
All right. Test 1, 2, 3.
All right, 1 second, please.
Thank you.
Mr. Menace, can you try one more time, please?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Mr. Menace, if you may, one more time, please.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Is that just power? Yeah, okay. All right, we're getting closer, Mr. Menace. Bear with us, please.
No problem. I'm here to assist you.
Sign in to speak.
No, we'll call you up next time. Thank you.
Oh.
Bear with us until 6. Mariah's gonna try to turn on mute.
All right, we should be able to do a Zoom meeting with this computer at home. Yeah. When you guys did this before, Gunnar, who was fire with the computer? Janet? I walked in. From there, you connected to the Zoom meeting there. Yeah.
do that. Yeah. Yeah. That's the only thing that we don't have. Like when you complain about Zoom, I said we do share screen. It's just like boom for everybody. That's all they get to see.
Now. Have you got anybody on the phone? Hello, Mr. Metz, can you give us a 3 count, please?
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, thank you.
That's did help Monica set up in the beginning. So I'm wondering if since you're logged into your account, right? Not set up. Because that's just having all the clerk's office log in and they click this stuff.
Hello, David.
Hello, Mickey. How are you?
I am a little frazzled doing end of the semester theses and finals and all that good stuff.
All that good stuff?
Oh, how about you?
Oh, I'm fair. You know, pollen count was high yesterday, and boy, it really worked me over.
I have had horrible problems with my allergies this year. I'm at like week 8 and I'm finally able to breathe without my nebulizer again.
Well, I've got to go to the pulmonologist the first week in June because all of mine are running out. I probably got about 3 squirts left and I'm going to be out.
Oh, shoot.
Unless I've got one misplaced someplace that I don't remember.
I don't usually use the fast acting. They just don't work for me with my tonsil. Well, it's not my tonsils anymore, but it's the tissue from where my tonsils and adenoids are. It's still very big, so I can't get it back there, even with using the chamber. The only thing that really seems to work is actually using a nebulizer machine.
You know, I don't have that problem, thank God. Now my brother does because his tonsils grew back.
Yeah, that's basically what happened with me. Hi, Merle. Hi, Hank.
Hi, everybody.
There's Mr. Chamberlain. How are you doing tonight?
I expect I'm well as I deserve.
There's going to be some people that say you're doing a whole lot better.
I was not going to go there, but I knew somebody would.
I think that's just
You are live in the chamber room and you are also live on YouTube right now.
Oh, yay.
Thank you.
sure we're doing a test ahead of time. We have to call, why do we have to have, we have to call Bill Burke. Next one, I have. I assume that staff that's on where it says Janet.
I think that's a good guess.
Commissioners, this is Gunnar Hand. I'm in the chamber room right now. Janet is out, but because she is the host of the Zoom meeting, that's why we're still seeing her. So if you have a question for Janet, that means you technically have a question for me tonight. And thus far, we have 3 members of the public in the chamber right now.
Welcome and thank you for joining.
I am treasurer of the Historic West Side Neighborhood Association.
I intended to go down to the hall tonight and keep Gunner company, but I had a report to write and it took longer than I thought it should have. So I'm online.
I was kind of the same mind, Hank. I have to finish a thesis for one of my classes.
Are you on now?
And then I'm doing the teacher's luncheon at Sumner, so there's no way I'm getting out of here.
Hey, Stephen.
Hello, hey, what's going on?
Good evening, Mr. Craddock.
Good evening, Madam Secretary.
Actually, that was Mickey.
Oh, Mickey, hello. You guys could pass for almost the same. Your voices are very similar.
Janet's not gonna be here then.
I will take that as an extreme compliment.
Good evening, Lauren.
Hello, Lauren.
I like that photograph Gunner, Scott. It looks like that was taken on the north approach, left traffic approach to KCI. I think I had myself muted. I was just looking at on Gunner's slide. I see portions of
Well, I can hear you now. Well, we're all muted.
that those old runways are almost historic in their own right. It's kind of nice to see some of it left.
Correct. Director Hand.
Mr. Metters, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Are we all hooked up, ready to go?
Yes, sorry about that. I had another small glitch. I believe we have a quorum. It is past 6 o'clock. If you'd like to call the meeting to order, we can do our best to get this thing going.
I will do. I would like to welcome everyone to the May 2nd, 2022 Walnut County UG Landmarks Commission meeting. Tonight, we will be lacking our secretary for the evening due to some undue circumstances. So for everyone involved in participating, would you please speak loudly, clearly, and state your name when you're addressing the commission? Anyone wanting to be recognized, please ask the chair for recognition, and I will do so. We also have a few protocols that we need to observe this evening. One is that, again, you ask for recognition of the chair to speak. We will have one application tonight, which is CD 2022-002 to consider during the public portion of this meeting. I will give the applicant 15 minutes to state their position and what they would like to say. We will have some staff questions, or should say commissioner questions. I will ask those in support to come forward. If anyone would like to speak, you have 5 minutes per, and those minutes may not be shared with anyone else. I will ask for those in opposition. I will give them 10 minutes. We will then ask for any rebuttal or anything else the applicant wishes to share. And then we will close that for the public portion of the meeting. Also at this time, I would ask if there are any of my commissioners that have had any contact, knowledge of the consideration of the application that would need to be addressed and reported on to everyone in attendance. Do I hear any comments from my fellow commissioners?
No, sir.
Hearing none, I will proceed on through the evening. I would note at this point in time, we do have a quorum of minutes. Bland, Craddock, Taylor, Hill, and Chamberlain. I also, Director Hand is in attendance. Associate Irma Dambeck and Legal Daniel Kuhn. Thank you one and all for your attendance this evening. At this point in time, we will go to the certificate or the consideration of the application HD 2022-002. Jennifer Mills, President of the Historic West Height Historic District designation for Historic West Site Manor, bounded by Wood Avenue and Everett Avenue on the north, North 18th Street on the east, State Avenue on the south, and North 22nd and North 25th Street on the west. Listed on the National Register of Historic Places, 1975, and district expanded in 1982, and the Register of Historic Kansas Places. Is our applicant in attendance with us this evening?
Mr. Chair, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Yes, Ms. Mills has been promoted to a panelist. I'm not sure if she has a presentation, but she is able to speak.
Yes, and I apologize, I was on mute. So yes, I am here.
would you please state your name again and your address for the record?
Sure. Jennifer Mills, 1508 North 21st Street, Kansas City, Kansas, 66102.
Thank you. The floor is yours for 15 minutes if you need it.
I don't think I need a full 15 minutes, I'll be honest. But thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you. So I am a resident of the historic West Heights Manor District, again, located, as we indicated, between 18th Street, State, and Wood, and then over to about 25th Street here in KCK. Our neighborhood is a very active neighborhood association. We've had the National Historic Designation for quite some time. And then, of course, the state designation also goes along. We've filled out all the paperwork and had that for a number of years. And what we are looking to do is get the local designation and recognition of that historic standing to help us to protect the enforcement of any building permits, people moving in and out, things like that. That's ultimately what our concern is we want to make sure that we have those protections in place in the enforcement side when people do come in and want to make some changes to some of the structures that are within the boundaries of the historic West Heights neighborhood. And that, I apologize, I do not have a full 15 minutes of anything really to be to there. So I'm open for questions or whatever the structure is that we need to do.
Well, thank you for your comments. It was a well-prepared packet that has been presented to us. Very thorough, and we do appreciate that. Do I have any questions from my fellow commissioners for the applicant at this time? Hearing none or seeing no one designating they want to ask a question, I will then ask if there is anyone in the attendance today that wishes to speak for this application. And that may be, Emma, you would have to acknowledge those, I believe.
Mr. Chair, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. We do have a few people in the chamber who would like to speak. And I believe once we're done with all proponents, it looks like we might have some folks online as well. And then if you want to shift over to ask the same question of opponents, I would recommend we start in the chamber and then to online. But we do have someone here right now if they want to come up and speak. We're not going to have video, but you should be able to hear them. Let's test this out and see if it works.
Good evening. My name is Rick Yarnell. I live at 2424 Nebraska Court, Kansas City, Kansas, 66102. Like Jennifer Mills, I also live in the West Heights Manor Historic District. I've lived there for many decades, not nearly as many as some other people have, but quite a long time. And I have lived in two different houses in that neighborhood. I would like to speak in favor of this designation because it's really important that our neighborhood be protected from inappropriate conversion and development of the structures that are in the historic district. The West Heights Manor Historic District, if I want to make a point, is probably one of very few districts that grew up over the course of nearly 90 years. The first house built in 1895, the last house in 1970, that's 85 years. You rarely see a historic district of that length of construction. That being said, one of the beauties of our neighborhood is that we have all sorts of different buildings that are of all different styles over the course of those many years, from Queen Anne all the way to California Ranch. It is very important when you take a look at these structures that you see all of the different buildings and residential types over the course of nearly a century are in that one neighborhood. The second reason I'd like to really support this particular designation is because we have had a lot of people coming in and looking at these structures, and they see that they are sometimes in need of repair. and they will buy them and they will flip them. And of course, without having to have a designation that's historic local landmark, they don't really have to go through the process of getting approval from the Landmarks Commission for significant and cosmetic changes that you can see from the outside. We have had problems with people replacing roofs that are inappropriate, replacing windows that are inappropriate, putting up siding sometimes that is inappropriate. And every time one of those happens, that makes that structure non-compliant to the district as a whole. When that happens over time, that could possibly affect the values of the historic designation of the other properties. So I really think that if we have some kind of mechanism, and I do believe this is the correct mechanism to get our historic district a local landmark, then it will show up that anytime someone wants to do something significant, then they would need to get the proper permits, come to the Landmarks Commission, show what they're going to do, and make this commission satisfied that what they're going to do is historically accurate and appropriate. Thank you so much for your time.
Mr. Yarnell, can you give me your address one more time?
2424 Nebraska Court.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else in the audience that'd like to speak for this item? They're coming up now, commissioners. Can you hear everybody when they speak?
I could hear them.
Okay.
I
Okay.
can.
I don't have a whole lot to add, but my name is Bruce Erickson. I live at 1307 Hole Parkway. I have lived there in that house for approximately 35 years. And, you know, I'll just kind of repeat a lot of the things that Rick also just said previously. I mean, in recent years, I mean, it just seems like we're getting more and more pressures from new homeowners that come in trying to make changes and stuff to the properties that are not going to improve the property values, and also from people that are flipping the houses or outside investors. They're coming in, buying them houses, trying to make a quick turnaround on them. And you know, anything that can help enforce, you know, the current codes and prevent some of those things from happening, I'm for it. But I don't have a whole lot more to add. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this item?
Yes. Gordon Criswell, 2221 Nebraska Avenue. I'd just like to echo what my neighbor said about why we are in support of this designation. I can tell you all personally that I get calls 15 or 20 times a day with people wanting to do improvements to the exterior of my home. And they have no idea at all that because it is a historic neighborhood, certain requirements have to be met in order to retain that historic designation. So getting the local designation and alerting realtors and investors of what the requirements are for the historic designation would really be in the long-term interest of this beautiful neighborhood. I would just echo what my neighbor said, that we want to maintain the character of West Height, and having a designation will assist us in doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak for? Just a second, Commissioner. Someone's coming to the podium right now.
Thank you, Rick Grant.
Good evening. My name is Ann Bridgewater, and I reside at 1513 North 18th Street in Kansas City, Kansas. And I'm here to make a complaint, really. I have called downtown several times. We have an alley. We can't park on the street. We have to park in the back in the alley. And it's so many potholes back there, and they have did anything about it. And then on the right side, they got a dump area where they come and dump all their trash. And they had put up a sign, no dumping, but someone have taken the sign down. And it's awful back there. And I would like to see that alley fixed, the potholes fixed. And I have not got an answer from anyone.
Yes, ma'am. So you are in favor of this application so that they have a little more control and some teeth over that situation? Is
Correct.
that all right? Well, I don't have any control over the crew that would do that. That's not under our bailiwick, but this certainly would help that situation.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else, Director Hand, in the audience or on the phone that wishes to speak?
I don't see anybody left in the audience. We do have a hand up with Matt H in online. Matt H.
Matt H, if you were online, please state your name and your address.
Yes, can you hear me, Commissioner?
Yes, I can.
My name is Matt Hentges. That's Hentges. I reside at 2010 Washington Boulevard. That is 2010 Washington Boulevard. As a longtime resident of West Height Manor, I would like to speak my support for this this item. I believe that having the local historic designation on West Height Manor is extremely important in maintaining the historical integrity of the homes in our area and maintaining property values. And I am in favor of this proposal.
Thank you very much, Matt. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. Chair, that is all the hands I see online. As for proponents, I would also note that Mr. Van Middlesworth has joined the meeting.
Thank you, sir. Welcome to our meeting, Commissioner Van Middlesworth. At this point in time, do I have anyone here to speak in opposition to this HD 2022-002?
Mr. Chair, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Design. There is nobody in attendance, and right now I see no hands up online for anyone in opposition.
I would be remiss if I did not mention that there was one letter addressed to this commission by a Jennifer Brock. There is no address attached at this point. Wait a minute, there is two, pardon me, at 2401 Washington Boulevard. Now, this has been printed out and is in our packet. I don't think I need to read it because it is in the packet of information, but I would be remiss if I did not speak to the fact that she did submit this in opposition. If there is no further opposition, Director Hand, is there any further comments from staff?
Mr. Chair, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Just a couple quick comments in addition to the applicant's presentation. As it was noted, I think it's important to reiterate that the proposed boundaries would be coterminous with both the state and federal historic designations as per the local historic landmarks and districts ordinance. If a district or landmark is currently a state or federal landmark, that makes it automatically eligible to become a local landmark. So by that alone, this district meets the local requirements. Again, there's a couple of noted architects as stated in the staff report, as well as some of the site had been planned by one of the more famous landscape architects in the region. Again, noted in the staff report. The way that when we rewrote and updated the historic ordinance this past December, the way that we had been handling permits in this specific area required the community, I should say, to then come back and perform local designation in order to have certificates of appropriateness and this body to review any permitted work for the exterior. I would note that state and federal designation, which is conducted by the State Historic Preservation Office, does both exterior and interior reviews. It is the state and federal designations that allow for certain tax credits. Local designation, again, only applies to the exterior of the building if a permit is pulled, at which time we coordinate with SHPO to proceed with that process. We've been doing quite a bit of work with our building inspections division. Most of our applications come from either stop work orders from building inspections and or building permits being pulled before they realize that they're in a landmarks commission. So I think we've done a lot of work over the last 6 months to a year coordinating internally with UG staff to make this a more fluid process for everybody. The other added benefit, I think, through all of this coordination and building up the relationship again with the State Historic Preservation Office is, as soon as we kick over any application to SHPO for their review, at that time, historic tax credits application can also happen simultaneously with the State Historic Preservation Office. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Director Hand. If there are no further questions from my fellow commissioners, I will close the public portion of this meeting. Hearing none, seeing no designation to speak, the public portion of this meeting is now closed. Are there any comments from my commissioners? If there is no further comments, I would make one that I feel this is extremely important that this proceeds in the manner in which we are doing now on these designations, which should make it a lot easier, simpler, not only for staff, ourselves, but also for our local residents. And I think it would clear up some misconceptions that are out there and the process as they are done. This point in time, I would entertain a motion for approval or denial of HD 2022-002.
Chairman Meditz, this is Commissioner Welcome Hill. I make a motion that we accept the, sorry, pardon me, my allergies, that we accept this as per recommendation of the staff.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
And that is Commissioner Craddock?
Land.
Land.
Yes, sir.
All right. I didn't hear clearly who seconded it. It has been moved and seconded that the Kansas City Landmarks Commission make the following findings contained within the staff report and recommends that the approval of HD 2022-002. All in favor? Signify.
Aye.
I probably should have called for a voice vote on that. Let me do that. Bland.
Aye.
Craddock.
Aye.
Van Middlesworth. I believe that's an aye. Taylor. I believe that's an aye. Hill.
Aye.
And Chamberlain.
Aye.
That motion carries. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mr. Chair, that this item will be heard again at the Board of Commissioners meeting on May 26, 2022.
All right. Thank you, sir. That vote was 6-0. Our motion for approval of this carries. All right, moving on. Let me get my order of business out here again. I think it falls to you, Director Hand. Downtown Historic District, multiple listing. The floor is yours, Director Hand.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Yes, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design for the Zoom record. The people in the audience are going to hear me say this all over again. I apologize for that. As it relates to the historic designation project that we're working on for the historic KCK commercial district, as well as the multiple listings for historic churches. Again, for those in the audience who haven't maybe heard this from the past, we did hire Polis Cultural Planning, who's been working with us since about late last year, 2021. We are nearing completion of the historic survey for the downtown commercial district, at which time they have now begun work on the, let's call it a broader geographic area for the historic churches in downtown KCK. We believe that work should be finalized by the end of May. Ms. Emma Dambeck is working on the list of properties as requested from the Landmarks Commission at our last meeting. As some of you may know, we did have a small hiccup at the unified government 2 weeks ago. We had a cyber attack. That list was on the server, which is now down. So Ms. Dambeck has been reworking that on her desktop this time. So we don't have a list for you tonight. So we apologize for that delay. But otherwise, once we have that list and once we finalize that survey, we should have a draft geographic area, a defined boundary for that historic commercial district. And we can begin our outreach in kind with you all and with the outreach subcommittee accordingly. Not too much to report, but sort of the consultant has been heads down working through all the minutia of the nomination as well as finalizing that survey. She has begun the survey for the historic churches, which is really the update here. Any questions?
I see no hands raised. Thank you, Director Hand. And we will move on to reports. Unfortunately, Chairman Schrader of our subcommittee has been requested to that he be excused this evening for some out-of-town affairs, and we will not have a report tonight from him, but look forward to having a report at our next meeting. Moving on, we come back to Director Hand under the director's report. The floor is again yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Again, we are waiting for all the resumes from the Landmarks Commissioners. Now that we have a full Landmarks Commission, we need everybody to submit who has not yet submitted their resume so that we can begin the process of updating our certified local government status with the State Historic Preservation Office. Again, we've been in contact with SHPO regarding this effort and are in agreement with them that as soon as we update the CLG status, which hasn't been updated since really before unification, they still have an agreement with the city of Kansas City, Kansas, which is not technically wrong, but also wrong and out of date. So we're going to upgrade that to the unified government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, and that time they will return the information back to staff as it relates to the SHPO agreement, the second half of this agenda item, which is the permits that we believe that we can handle in-house for SHPO, things like electrical permits for water heaters in West Height Manor, for instance, don't necessarily need to go through the State Historic Preservation Office and take 30 days. So we have general consensus on those, but the State Historic Preservation Office wants us to finalize the agreement, certified local government agreement first before we move forward with that other effort. So we are waiting for your resumes.
Thank you, Director Hand. Can you tell me hopefully they weren't on the boxed up in the web problems that we have now. But if you could send me a list of the needed resumes, I will try to reach out to the fellow commissioners that may not be in attendance tonight to make sure that they get those in.
We can do that, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Your second item this evening is the HPF grant.
Yes, Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. As you all know from the last meeting, we did submit by the March 31st, I believe it was, deadline for the Historic Preservation Fund grant. Again, this is the grant that we hope to be awarded so that we can do a citywide historic preservation plan, sort of prioritizing and wrapping our heads around all the things that we need to do as a part of this work of this body moving forward. We are retroactively taking the request for that grant to the Standing Committee of the Board of Commissioners next Monday, which will then be forwarded, if recommended for approval, to the full Board of Commissioners later this month. We had a quick update and agenda review with the chair of that standing committee, Commissioner McKiernan. Didn't seem to be a problem that we were coming in retroactively. Again, if anything were to come of it and they had any issues with the pursuit of this grant, we could always withdraw and not take the money from the state if we were awarded. So it's not the biggest deal, but again, we got the timing a little bit wrong there. So I apologize to the commissioners, and they didn't have any heartburn about it. But we have been in communication with SHPO. They have sort of a meeting later this month that we will be in attendance to present our request. Again, in a democracy, you got to show up to show interest. And so we'll be at that meeting seeking those funds. Hopefully we can move forward with this grant with the permission of the Board of Commissioners and the support of the State Historic Preservation Office. This would be a good dovetail after our historic designation project wraps up, hopefully by the end of this summer, early fall.
Again, thank you, Director Hand. I believe there's been a few organizations that submitted letters with your initial application. Some came in later. Are you able to access those again so they could be sent in with the final grant application?
Yes, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. We have in our communications post submittal of the grant application to SHPO, they've asked us some additional questions, and we were able to provide those additional letters of support accordingly.
All right, thank you. Item number 3, Historic Preservation Month, May 2022, May 26th, 2022, 7 p.m. Board of Commissioners draft presentation. Again, the floor is yours, Director Hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. So I was going to walk you guys, you all through the draft presentation that we've developed. If you recall, over the last couple of months, we've brought you the outline of said presentation. We sent let's call it a very rough draft last Friday for your review. Ms. Dambeck and I have been working on it since that time. So what I'm going to show you today is different than what is on the packet. We hope that it's gotten better since last Friday. We've moved a few things around. We've added a couple things, and then we've highlighted information that we haven't been able to get to because of the server crash. So there is a bit of a gap in it still. But with that said, what I'd like to do is just quickly run through. It's maybe 10 slides. And then we can flip back and forward and decide if you guys have any other metrics that you think we're missing, any other issues from typographical down to structural. We'd love to get your guys' input on this presentation before we go to the Board of Commissioners. And then secondly, when we're done, Mr. Chair, I would still like to sort of talk through how you wanted to maybe present this to the board later this month. So without further ado, let me just run through this really quick. This won't be polished by any stretch of the imagination. Let me just go through the draft so we all kind of understand what we hope to present. Again, May is Historic Preservation Month. May is also Bike Walk Month. So we will also be giving another presentation at the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting in partnership with Public Health, who runs our infrastructure action team, to give their Complete Streets annual report. So we'll actually have two presentations on the same Thursday agenda. So we're trying to keep both clear and concise. Again, this is just the first slide that shows all the different designations. It's a little muddled, so we're working through the graphics of this. Part of the server collapse destroyed our GIS server as well. So this is straight from UG Maps. It's not the best. We're working on making this look better. We might ditch this altogether, but again, just a general kind of overview of, and I'll move this around in the meeting so people can see there's plenty down in Rosedale as well. Just to show the geographic diversity, or perhaps lack thereof, of historic designations across the county. Again, there are a few, but not many, in what is Wyandotte County, outside of the purview of this City Landmarks Committee for the City of Kansas City, Kansas. When we looked at all of the permits in 2021, again, this is we're in 2022, but we're looking just from January 1 to December 31st of 2021. We had 31 total applications. Of those 31, 15 made it to the Landmarks Commission, 14 were approved, 1 were denied. And I would note one of those C of As was for demolition. The historic picture to the right is the old 7th Street Church in downtown that was approved for demolition through a C of A. You can generally chalk up all of the other applications when you do the delta between 31 and 15 to either non-responsive applicants or still requesting additional information and got carried over to 2022. These are not the most straightforward applications for a lot of applicants. We generally ask for the same things you would for, say, a building permit. But very often we get a lot of people who walk away from them. So I think that that's part of the setting this baseline and understanding that metric moving forward. Real quick side note, that number of environs reviews I believe is incorrect, but we do have quite a few environs reviews in 2021. I don't think it's 44. I'll double check that number. And then again, because of the server crash, we were unable to identify how many exemption letters. Ms. Dambeck was able to basically go through all the old agendas and find the C of A stuff, her old emails to find environs review. Exemption letters are a little bit of a different animal. So that one will either remove by the Board of Commissioners hearing or find that number and put it up there. We think it's around 16. Now, again, exemption letters happens when it's basically an in-kind ask. Someone wants to replace a roof with a roof. We're not going to make them go through a C of A. We're not going to make them do an environs review. We just do an exemption, they can get the permit and move forward. Assuming that roof is the same material roof and the same color roof. There are still metrics there or conditions there. This is just a graphic trying to show some of those increases over time. Again, a part of setting this baseline, it's been difficult for us to go into 2020, but we wanted to do as best we could to go back into 2020 to show some level of increase between 2020 and 2021. Really, these percentages mean nothing because it's only 2 years. But as we get to 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, we'll start to be able to identify trends. This is just a recognition that we want to start tracking this year over year and identify trends accordingly. Landmarks Commission meetings, I'd say this is important. This will hopefully not change after 2021, but this is just a clear recognition that in 2022, we only had 4 meetings. In 2021, we had 11. We're getting this to me basically says we're getting back to doing monthly meetings, which is getting back to being a proactive Landmarks Commission. A quick just review of the Landmarks Commission Outreach Subcommittee. Again, some metrics that we haven't been able to track, digging through old minutes from 2021. The meetings themselves are somewhat irrelevant. We know we've had more than one, or we know we've had at least 5 in 2021, and there was maybe 1 in 2020. I think this got started right at the end of 2020, but again, with Commissioner Schrader out, are unavailable for the last week or so. And the computer crash, we weren't able to get those metrics exactly. Again, this is just a recognition that you all created an outreach committee in the last 2 years, and that it's primarily focused on the downtown project right now, but has already expanded its scope to do some other stuff outside of that. And then Mr. Meditz, as per your email earlier this today, we slid this in this morning. Still gathering all the information. I think it's important also that we note all of the trainings that we do. So in 2022, we did our commission training with Mr. Gautier, so that won't make it to this list because we're just focused on all things 2021 right now, even though we're 5 months into 2022. But again, I think it's important that we note that we're not just sort of sitting on our hands, right? We're both as staff and as commissioners doing trainings, trying to stay up with all the best practices in the historic preservation field. And what we'd like to do is calculate the number of hours of training we've been in. I can do that for myself because most of the trainings I've been to have been AICP related credits, and I can go back and find out those hours. So again, we didn't have time to collect those new metrics today, but I think it's important to show that we're always learning and always getting better at our work. And then slight pivot to districts and landmarks designations, again, just for 2021. Again, this isn't going to tell us much other than setting a baseline. The point that we would make that here, and you'll see later in another slide, is we haven't had a local designation, except for the one that passed last month, since 2005. We hope to show a trend year over year of this number growing. There is a wealth of districts, landmarks, buildings, sites, other things that could potentially be historically designated, both from a local, state, and federal designation. But again, this is our baseline year. And in 2021, we didn't have any. We're not 100% sure if we're going to add a separate slide just to talk about the update to the Historic Landmarks and Districts Ordinance in 2021, but we slid that in there as the last bullet point on this one. We did request from the State Historic Preservation Office some information. Again, this tells us nothing right now. We're still going through it and verifying it with the State Historic Preservation Office. But we just kind of wanted to also sort of see a trend on historic preservation tax credits that go through SHPO. So this is more of a placeholder. We'll get to the actual numbers and some knowledge from these numbers before the end of the month this month. And then I'm not sure if this is going to play. Nope. Let's try it again. Okay, this is a PDF, and if this were in PowerPoint, the map to the left would basically be moving, and it would show essentially a time-lapse video noting all the historic landmarks over time that have been approved. And so it kind of, it's basically dots on a map that grows over time, and you can see at the end of it both the concentration across the UG, similar to the map at the start of the presentation, but this is just a time-lapse video. So we're gonna have to figure out how to get that to work in a PDF. I know there's a way to do it. I just exported it wrong out of PowerPoint. I apologize for that. But yeah, that's an animation slide. And then we wanted to go over just a couple of the more recent ones. Again, these go back past 2021, but I think it shows again sort of the focus and where we are in the more recent history of historic landmark designation. So the last two state national were the YMCA and the Brotherhood Block projects. Again, there were no state or national designations in 2020 or 2021. The most recent historic district, state and national, was the West High Department Historic District. That was back in 2015, right down the street from the West High Manor Historic District. And then again, back to something I mentioned earlier, a couple of designations of note here. We're not going to add maybe we will add the designation of West High Manor as a local district here because it'll be up on the agenda item. It'll go on the agenda before this presentation. So we'll tentatively add that one to this list as well. But again, the local designations, we haven't had one since 2005. That was the Matthias Split Log House, which ended up getting demolished. And then again, we had the Emmanuel Baptist Church, which is this building at the bottom that we heard last month. And then the last district that was nominated was Parkwood back in 1988. So it's been quite the gap since we've been, let's say, proactive in our historic preservation efforts. That's sort of the point there. A quick slide about the project, the 2021 Historic Preservation Fund we successfully were awarded. Again, if you recall, that was 2 different grants that we combined into one project through a request for proposals. That is ongoing. That's a $51,000 total investment. And then again, a slide about where we are with the survey so far. And then in 2022, again, we wanted to just note that we are going after a second request. Again, at this meeting on the 26th, we should know whether by the time we're giving this presentation, we should know whether the Board of Commissioners is supporting this 2022 Historic Preservation Fund grant submission. And then on the last slide of the presentation is just kind of, we wanted to call out all the other stuff we generally talk about at our meetings. Sour Castle has been a hot topic over the last couple of years, just generally sort of observing and tracking that historic landmark. We also wanted to note that as a part of the historic preservation ordinance update, we're doing a lot of GIS work, adding the suffixes to the zoning codes and our GIS maps for both districts and environs. And then general outreach efforts. Again, this is in the spirit of the subcommittees trying to go outside of downtown to do some additional outreach. We've noted this in the past, and so we just wanted to note it for the commissioners that when we do finish the GIS mapping project, we will be sending out a letter to all of those properties. Not that their zone has changed, but their zone not the zone designation has changed, but their zone number, if you will, has changed. Doesn't change anything on your property other than you're going to have a suffix. Again, it's an awareness, part of our awareness campaign, putting as many things as we can out there in the public to trigger people to ask or to identify these properties as historically designated. And again, the outreach efforts around the downtown KCK historic commercial district that we're doing as well. So that is the presentation currently. Happy to take any questions, suggestions, ideas, any misinformation, anything you don't like. Please let us know now, or if you want to shoot us all an email, I will have, well, Janet's gone. So tomorrow I will send you all a revised version, so you have this in front of you as opposed to the old one. If you want to provide us comments by the end of this week, that'd be much appreciated.
Thank you, Director Hand. Do have any comments or questions from my fellow commissioners to Director Hand? I see none, hear none. A couple comments, Director Hand. One is when you were talking about the somewhere around like the time spent and what we do there on one of your slides, the numbers there that we participated in terms of certificates. Somehow we might want to note in there that it only shows, I think 15 or something like that. And we had 11 meetings, but some of these certificates take 2, 3, 4 meetings that we've reviewed or throughout this process, that the numbers don't quite reflect maybe the time spent involved in these decisions. The other one is the fact that sometimes we don't have a particular certificate, but they're asking for our support for expanding a district or expanding a state district. We want to make sure, I think, that we get those types of decisions or involvement that the commission has up front in this process. After that, we'll think about it, and if we have things, we need to get them to you. All right. There's no comments from that.
Mr. Chamberlain has his hand raised.
Yes,
Well,
Mr. Chamberlain.
this relates to something other than the presentation. So I can wait till you move on if you want.
Well, if it's kind of new business, we'll do that. Director Hand, is there anything on Sour Castle? I don't think so, but
This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Design. No updates this month on the Sour Castle.
all right. At this point, we'll move on and just put it in new business. Mr. Chamberlain, you had a comment or item to bring up?
I just have a question. It's not the first time I've raised it. It kind of gnaws at me. I did hear recently that there was perhaps some grant funding in the pipeline for Quindaro ruins. That has always seemed to me like a horrible loss of opportunity and waste of a resource and something of historic significance. Is there any prospect of getting that area improved and developed and cleaned up and curated a little and some archaeology done and try to do something with it?
Well, from my standpoint here, in response to that, I think, we have a national historic designation for that. Again, we don't have a local that I know of. And this process that we've now kind of establishing with the West Height deal, I think needs to be implemented there. And this is part of hopefully this survey that we would like to get the grant for and be able to do, citywide, all across the board, because there's got to be more than just one spot up there. And it's how we integrate it is the way I look at it. And yes, I'm with you on how do we do it. And the other thing is how to keep us involved and informed. Again, hopefully initiatives that we've started here with the subcommittee was just a egg, so to speak, and we'll be able to move on. So that's kind of my response to that. But it does give me an opening there. I appreciate the opening. Is Janet sent out to us this National Alliance of Preservation Commissions that's got this webinar coming up on May 20th at 1 p.m. Eastern time, so that'd be noon here. And the topic of this free webinar is preservation justice. And that is how to make it more equitable over all the over everyone, the peoples, etc. She sent out a nice flyer on it. It's to provide local government programs to have the ability to be leaders in creating more inclusive historic preservation program, and how you begin to incorporate diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility in your preservation work. So there's several presenters that's going to be presenting that. I encourage everyone to attend if you can. Most of these will be available to share later on, or you have the ability to be able to get the recording if you attend. So Hank, I think this would be another good starting point for us. It sounds like a great webinar, and I do plan to attend it myself. Is there any other comments or things that people would like to address to anyone? Hank, myself, or anyone else?
Mr. Chair, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Design. I would just add one comment to Commissioner Chambers, or maybe two comments to Commissioner Chambers, Chamberlain, excuse me, his question. Again, I can follow up with the folks who are part of the board between the consisting of the unified government appointees and the AME Church that is tasked with working on the Quindaro town site. I would also note that Ms. Dambeck has been working with the folks at the Vernon School and Museum on a preservation grant. I'm not sure, Mr. Chamberlain, if that's the one that you mentioned or that you were thinking of or heard of in the past. I'm not sure if that one got off center. We were working with them. I know they missed one deadline, but there were like 2 or 3 other grant opportunities. There's quite a few coming out of Secretary of Interior, a national park system, that certainly would be eligible for this site, specifically designed for a site like this, in fact. So we've been supporting efforts locally to pursue some of that grant money. Ms. Dambeck has also been working to connect the folks in the Vernon School with the State Historic Preservation Office, who have their own grant program, which we've talked about already. So it's not just for municipalities to pursue to do historic preservation plans, but also for property owners to pursue to get a little bit of money to help with some of their historic preservation projects, potentially. I know the folks at the Vernon School looking to get a new roof because they got some leaks, for instance. And then the last thing I would just note is, as a part of the Northeast KCK Heritage Trail planning process that is, I would say about 3/4 of the way through that effort, which is to define a route for a heritage trail between Caw Point and the Quindaro town site. I think we're trying to be very intentional on how we address the termini of the said trail at the Quindaro town site. And I think we have a meeting, in fact, this week to talk to some of the folks. There are a lot of different people who are interested and are working in and around the Quindaro town site. So we've been trying to bring all of them together to have a conversation about how the heritage trail planning process could potentially be a starting point for some of the work that's been discussed there for quite a few years. So I think that's another effort to move that forward. I will add Quindaro town site to old business moving forward and provide any other updates in the following meeting.
Thank you, sir. That's all very encouraging and very helpful.
Thank you, Director Hand. I believe we have no further business tonight. I would like to remind everyone that we will be presenting, as Gunnar said, on May 26th. Gunnar, I will get with you more. And our next commission meeting is June 6th, 2022 at 6 p.m. I will call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Good evening, all.